Hi, Gerhard Bloom, once again looking at the tyranny and the delusions of the social justice movement. So this piece is a religion of peace, part 2, right? Is Islam a religion of peace? Absolutely not even close. You recall that 12 people were gunned down at Charlie Hebdo for allegedly offending the dignity of Islam. That's right, 12 people murdered in cold blood for the grave sin of publishing some effing cartoons. And long before this Hebdo slaughter, there were riots and killings across the Muslim world as a result of cartoons of Muhammad in a Danish newspaper. At least 139 people were killed. Killed for cartoons. Imagine that, if you will. Well, you don't have to imagine because it's happened. Do you recall Iran's Ayatollah calling for the cold-blooded murder of Salman Rushdie for writing a novel, again, offending the dignity of Islam? Did the Ayatollah, did he misunderstand Islam? No, it's deluded leftists that misunderstand Islam. Time after these slaughters, it doesn't represent Islam. Of course it represents Islam. You know those numerous terrorist organizations? Islamic terrorist organizations. And yes, once again, they are deeply concerned that their practices are consistent with the teachings of Muhammad and Islam. This is no accident. And so calling for the death of Salman Rushdie, Rushdie was nearly killed in a murderous, cowardly attack by, yes, a warrior for Allah. Yes, this happened recently. And do you recall the director, the Danish director, Theo van Gogh, right? Brutally slaughtered in broad daylight for the crime of making the film Submission, exposing the chronic abuse and mistreatment of women in the Muslim world. And oh yes, these leftists talk about toxic masculinity and the oppression of women. Why don't they go over to the Muslim world and start waving their feminist flag? No, you know what these feminists and leftists do? They champion the most militant, ideological, poisonous forms of Islam. Yes, leftists are actually doing this. Theo van Gogh's, the writer for his script and Submission was Ayaan Hirsi Ali. She escaped Islam. She's an apostate. That alone in Islam will get you killed. License enough to get you killed. Leftists attack her constantly, as though these leftists understand Islam and Ayaan Hirsi does not. Well, Ayaan Hirsi Ali was genitally mutilated as a child. Yes, this happened to her. And, a French bishop beheaded in an Islamist terrorist attack in the middle of Mass. Well, he was given Mass. He was beheaded. Imagine the horror that he experienced before his death and those that witnessed this barbarity. And an elderly school teacher in France was beheaded for the crime, yet again, of showing these cartoons, offending the dignity of Islam. He brought them in to discuss to his students the importance of free speech, which again, leftists, it's hate speech, it needs to be suppressed. No, free speech is free. These leftists, anything they don't like is hate speech. And now, having reflected on those murderous attacks, and they're incessant. I mean, I could fill several books outlining murderous terrorist attacks in the 20th and 21st centuries, like not going back through 1400 years of horror. Now, contrast that with the reception of the deeply offensive work of Andres Serrano and his Piss Christ. That's right, that's the title of his work of art. It's a photograph of a crucifix with the body of Christ immersed in a jar of urine. And yes, pointy-headed liberals sipping white wine, clap their hands. Oh, that's so inventive. And oh, how brave, how brave. Try that with a Quran, Mr. Serrano. Try that with a Quran. It wasn't brave at all. It's cowardly. There were no mass riots, no mass killings, and no calls from any Christian leaders for the beheading of Serrano. No, none at all. And yes, I still get these self-righteous dummies arguing that I don't understand Islam. They don't know an effing thing about Islam. And I get Muslims denying the basic tenets of their faith, or they don't understand the very basic tenets of their faith. Here's an interesting fact. The vast majority of Muslims around the world do not read classical Arabic. Arab speakers find the Quran, written in classical Arabic, nearly impenetrable. Most Muslim communities around the world rely on translations and imams. And there are moderate imams teaching a moderate and restrained Islam. And then there are the very doctrinaire Muslims and imams. And here's also an interesting fact, that worldwide, it's the most virulent, toxic forms of Islam that are spreading. And they are being spread because they are being funded in the Sunni community by Iran, and the Shiite community from Iran, and the Sunni community from Saudi Arabia. So they're setting up these mosques and filling them with poisonous, militant mullahs and imams, I should say. And yes, they understand the Quran very, very well. It's these stupid leftists that don't understand Islam. Anyways, thank you so much for your time and attention. Do check out my book. There's a very lengthy, very informed discussion on this issue and many other important issues. I promise you, the book's important, not important because I wrote it. I wrote it because the issues could not be more important. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Bye-bye.